If you are thinking about packing up and heading to California in 2026, you need to hear this first. While the Golden State still has some of the most beautiful coastline, the best weather, and more opportunity than almost anywhere else in the country, there are pockets of this state where crime has gotten so out of control that people who have lived there for decades are telling newcomers the same thing. Don't come here. In some of these cities, locals have a rule that sounds extreme until you actually live there. Do not stop at red lights after dark. Now that might sound dramatic, but when you look at the actual FBI crime data and California Department of Justice numbers and the stories coming out of these communities, it starts to make a lot more sense. California recorded 480 violent crimes per 100,000 residents in 2024. That is the statewide average. The cities on this list, some of them are running 3 to 4 times that number. And the gap between the safest California cities and the most dangerous ones is wider than you would ever guess from the outside. Here is what makes this worse. The safest cities in California, places like Irvine, Thousand Oaks, and Mission Viejo, have violent crime rates that barely register. The Southern Coast region, covering Orange, San Diego, and Ventura counties, recorded just 331 violent crimes per 100,000 in 2024. Meanwhile, the San Joaquin Valley hit 603. Same state, completely different reality. So if you are planning a move, scouting a retirement spot, or even just road tripping through the state, these are the 10 cities you need to know about before you go. Number 10, Inglewood. Inglewood sits just south of Los Angeles, and on paper, it looks like a city on the rise. The brand new SoFi Stadium, home to both the Rams and the Chargers, brought billions in development money. The Intuit Dome opened for the Clippers. There is an entire entertainment district being built. But here is the thing about rapid development next to deep poverty. It does not erase the problems. It just puts a shiny building next to them. Robberies and aggravated assaults remain common across Inglewood, and the influx of tourists heading to concerts and games has created a whole new set of targets. Smash and grab car break-ins in stadium parking lots have become routine. Residents in neighborhoods just blocks from the stadium say they hear gunshots on weekday nights, and the police presence that floods the area on game days vanishes by Tuesday morning. Once you step outside that development bubble, the neighborhoods surrounding it have not seen a dime of that investment. Inglewood's violent crime numbers remain stubbornly elevated, and locals will tell you the fancy new buildings just mean more people walking around with expensive phones in a city that has not figured out how to keep them safe. Number 9, Richmond. North of Oakland, sitting on the edge of the San Francisco Bay, Richmond has one of those reputations that follows a city around for decades, and unfortunately, the numbers still back it up. The crime rate in Richmond sits 149% above the national average. Not 49, not 99, 149% higher. A huge chunk of that violence is concentrated in a neighborhood called the Iron Triangle. That single area accounts for roughly 42% of all aggravated assaults in the entire city. Gang activity and drug-related offenses are packed into just a handful of blocks. If you accidentally drive through the wrong intersection after dark, you'll understand very quickly why people talk about Richmond the way they do. The city has made genuine efforts at community intervention programs, and some of them have shown results, but the progress is slow, and the Triangle remains one of the most dangerous pockets in Northern California. Number 8, Fresno. Fresno is a weird one because the headlines have actually been getting better. Homicides in 2025 dropped to 22, the lowest number in 51 years. That is a 70% decline from 2020, when the city recorded nearly 75 murders. The police department even hit a 105% murder clearance rate, meaning they solved some cold cases from previous years on top of the current ones. Motor vehicle thefts dropped 34%, which means 1,250 fewer stolen cars in a single year. So why is Fresno still on this list? Because property crime remains brutal. your chance of becoming a crime victim in Fresno is still 1 in 24. The city's overall crime rate sits at 41 per 1,000 residents, which is higher than 96% of communities in California. Fresno was once labeled the car theft capital of the entire nation, and while the numbers have improved, the city is still working its way out of that hole. If you are moving to Fresno, the violence is trending in the right direction, but lock your car, lock your house, and lock everything else twice. Number 7. Modesto. Modesto flies under the radar compared to Oakland or Stockton, and that is exactly what makes it dangerous for people who do not do their homework. Tucked in the Central Valley, about 90 minutes east of San Francisco, Modesto has been quietly climbing the crime charts while nobody was watching. The city reports 6.89 violent crimes per 1,000 residents, and crime has been increasing 8% year over year in the West Side districts. Domestic violence incidents run at 2.8 per 1,000 people, and retail theft sits at 9.1 per 1,000. Those numbers might sound dry, but translate them into daily life. It means you cannot leave a package on your porch. It means the parking lot at the mall is not somewhere you want to be alone at 9 p.m. And it means the police are spread thin enough that response times are getting longer. Modesto is the kind of city that looks fine on a Google search, but feels very different once you are actually living there. Number 6. Bakersfield. Bakersfield is California's oil country, and for a long time people moved here because it was cheaper than Los Angeles and still close enough to drive. But cheap cost of living and limited social services have created a cycle that has been hard to break. The city's overall crime rate runs at about 4,519 incidents per 100,000 residents. That's nearly double the national average. Property crime exceeds the national average by over 100%. And Bakersfield has one of the highest vehicle theft rates in the entire nation, with 1,179 stolen vehicles per 100,000 people. Walk through certain neighborhoods near the old downtown core and you will see driveways with chains across them, steering wheel locks on every car, and security cameras bolted to every eave. People here are not paranoid. They have just learned the hard way. Kern County, where Bakersfield sits, has seen violent crime decline 17% in 2024, which sounds promising until you realize it is declining from a peak that was already alarming. DUI arrests remain a persistent problem here too, driven in part by the oil field worker population and limited public transit options. If you are considering Bakersfield because the rent is affordable, just know there is a reason the rent is affordable. Number 5. Vallejo. Vallejo has had a complicated decade. Sitting just across the water from San Francisco, it should be a commuter's dream. Bay views, ferry access, and home prices that are a fraction of what you would pay in the city. Instead, it has become a cautionary tale about what happens when a city's economy collapses and public safety goes with it. Vallejo actually filed for bankruptcy itself back in 2008, years before Stockton and San Bernardino followed. The police department was gutted during the recovery, and the trust between officers and the community has been fractured by a string of use of force controversies that made national news. The overall crime rate in Vallejo is 52 per 1,000 residents, placing it among the highest in the entire country. The violent crime rate runs at about 9.83 per 1,000, which is nearly double the national average. 23 homicides were recorded between January and November 2024 alone. And if you own a car in Vallejo, you have a 1 in 107 chance of it being stolen. That is not a statistic you want to gamble on. Auto burglaries and thefts topped 1,100 incidents in a single year. Area Vibes data showed a 20% increase in overall crime year over year. The city has struggled to rebuild trust between residents and law enforcement for years. Vallejo's police department has been under scrutiny for its own controversies, and that fractured relationship between the community and the people supposed to protect it has made everything harder. Until that dynamic improves, the numbers are unlikely to change. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. I break down cities, crime data, and relocation advice every single week so you can make smarter decisions before you sign a lease or buy a house. From this point forward, these cities are in a different league. Number 4, Compton. Compton's reputation precedes it, and while the city has made real strides since the 1990s, the data shows it is still one of the most dangerous places in California. The violent crime rate sits at 11.78 per 1,000 residents. Property crime runs at 23.79 per 1,000, and gang violence is still responsible for roughly 65% of all homicides in the city. The poverty rate hovers around 23%, and that economic pressure feeds directly into the crime numbers. Catalytic converter thefts have surged to 9.3 incidents per 1,000 people, which means if you park your car on the street overnight, there is a real chance someone is sliding under it with a saw. Community policing efforts and youth outreach programs exist, and some of them are making a difference. But the reality on the ground has not caught up with the hope yet. Compton is still a city where vigilance is not optional. Number 3, Stockton. Stockton has been struggling for so long that it filed for municipal bankruptcy in 2012, and the aftershocks of that financial collapse are still rattling through the city's public safety infrastructure. The combined crime rate sits at approximately 43 per 1,000 residents. The homicide rate of 1.52 per 1,000 ranks among the highest in the nation. And Stockton does not exist in isolation. It is part of the San Joaquin Valley, a region that recorded 603 violent crimes per 100,000 residents in 2024, more than 25% above the statewide average. Gang activity on the city's south side drives a significant share of the shootings and assaults. Car thefts account for 15.8 incidents per 1,000 people. The poverty rate is among the highest of any mid-sized city in the state, and unemployment has been a chronic issue for over a decade. The city has invested in community violence intervention programs and ceasefire strategies, and there have been some improvements, but Stockton remains a place where affordable housing comes with a price tag that does not show up on Zillow. The wrong neighborhood at the wrong time can mean serious trouble. The right neighborhoods are getting harder to find. Number 2, San Bernardino. San Bernardino is the city that went bankrupt and never fully recovered. When it filed for Chapter 9 in 2012, it was the third largest municipal bankruptcy in American history. The ripple effects on public safety have been devastating. The violent crime rate sits at roughly 14.93 per 1,000 residents. Armed robberies run at 3 per 1,000. Burglaries hit 12.6 per 1,000, concentrated heavily near the Interstate 215 corridor. Methamphetamine-related offenses dominate a huge portion of arrests, and the city's understaffed police force simply cannot cover the ground it needs to. Poverty rates hover around 25%, and unemployment has remained stubbornly above the state average for years. When a city cannot afford enough officers, and the officers it does have are overwhelmed by drug-related crime, everything else suffers. Response times stretch. Property crimes go uninvestigated. Residents learn to handle problems on their own, which creates a whole different set of issues. San Bernardino County saw property crime fall about 15% in 2024, which is a genuine bright spot. But city-level figures tell a different story than county-level averages. If you are looking at the Inland Empire for affordable housing, San Bernardino proper is the zip code you want to circle on the map and avoid. Number 1, Oakland. Oakland is not just the most dangerous city in California. By some measures, it is one of the most dangerous cities in the entire United States. The combined crime rate sits at 91 per 1,000 residents, according to Neighborhood Scout's analysis of FBI data. That's higher than 100% of California communities. The property crime rate alone is 60.23 per 1,000 residents, and the city recorded 285 gun violence incidents in a single reporting period. Now, there is some genuinely good news. 2025 was the most significant single-year crime decline in Oakland in decades. Homicides fell 22%, dropping from 86 to 67, the lowest annual total in years. Armed robberies plummeted over 40%. Motor vehicle theft dropped 39%. The city is trending in the right direction, and the investments in technology and community programs are producing real results. But the reality is that Oakland is improving from a baseline that was catastrophic. East Oakland neighborhoods still deal with chronic police understaffing and concentrated poverty that generations of policy have failed to fix. A significant percentage of police positions remain vacant, and emergency response times in certain neighborhoods stretch well beyond what anyone would consider acceptable. An elderly man recently had his prized antique Corvette stolen from his home in broad daylight. His reaction to the local news summed up what a lot of Oakland residents feel. No consequences in this city. The city is getting safer. It is just getting safer from an extraordinarily dangerous starting point. For people considering a move here, the neighborhood you choose will determine whether you experience the Oakland that is healing or the Oakland that is still hurting. So here is the bottom line for anyone considering California in 2026. The state overall is actually trending safer. Statewide violent crime fell 6% in 2024. Property crime dropped to its lowest level since 1985. The statewide homicide rate is the second lowest since 1966. California as a whole is not the lawless wasteland that some headlines would have you believe. But where you live within California matters more than whether you live in California at all. A city like Irvine or Thousand Oaks might as well be on a different planet from the cities on this list. The gap between the safest and most dangerous communities in this state is enormous. And if you are making a move, the neighborhood you choose is the single most important decision you will make. If this video helped you think differently about where to land in California, the next video on screen breaks down the safest cities in the state, the ones where people actually leave their doors unlocked. Click it now.